beautiful group of humans we have. I just want to give a shout out to Jermaine Johnson. Let's give him a round of applause. And everyone else has been working so hard on behalf of the Yang Gang every single day. But special credit to Jermaine for being one of the first people to throw his weight behind the campaign. And I gotta say, just walking around with Jermaine just makes you feel so much cooler. Amen. Because you walk someplace with Jermaine and you know exactly how it shakes out. People see Jermaine and they're like, who is that? And then the next thing is, who's the Asian man with him? Just draws a crowd everywhere we go. Now Jermaine has more and more company. We just opened our 5th office here in South Carolina. And South Carolina's a perfect place for this campaign because you all see the problems more clearly than a lot of other Americans. You see what's going around us in our communities every single day. I'm a parent, I've got 2 young boys. How many of y'all are parents like me? Wow, I just talked to a dad in the back who said that he's got a 14-year-old and he's like, how am I supposed to afford college for my son? He looks up, he's putting money away, he's doing the right things, he's responsible, but he's like, why did college get 2.5 times more expensive than when we went to school? And if you're a parent, you're thinking the same thing. If it's not college, it's daycare. If it's not daycare, it's all of the assorted expenses that come with having a child. And I know, like when, I get asked every once in a while, what are you going to do with your freedom dividend? And I'll just look at them and be like, I've got kids, man. like the freedom dividend, all the parents here know, that's already spoken for. As you all know, I'm not a career politician. Amen. Yeah. Yes, and most Americans do not seem to mind. But I spent the last 7 years running a nonprofit I'd started. Give a shout if you worked for a nonprofit or volunteered. Go ahead and shout it out. Yeah, that's right. If you haven't, you're not a very nice person. I'm kidding. You're all great people. But if you worked at a nonprofit, it's such a labor of love. And you have to be constantly making the case for your organization, always grateful, always indefatigable. I spent 7 years running this nonprofit that I'd started called Venture for America. And we ran around the country helping businesses create jobs and grow. And it went so well that I was honored by the Obama administration. I got to bring my lovely wife Evelyn to meet the president. So my in-laws were really excited about me for about a week. They were like, yeah, look at the pictures. She did all right. So I was doing this work over the last 7 years, and I saw firsthand the massive disparities between our communities, where when you fly between Michigan and Manhattan or St. Louis and San Francisco, you feel like you're crossing decades and dimensions, not just a few time zones. And we know the same thing is true here in your state in South Carolina. You drive 20, 30 miles and you can go from really, really nice neighborhoods and houses and maybe even beachfront to struggles and poverty and crime just in a pretty quick drive. What you can see here in South Carolina is playing out around the country. We have the most extreme winner-take-all economy in our country's history. I did not realize how bad it was until I spent 7 years traveling this country to Birmingham and New Orleans and St. Louis and Baltimore and around the country. I was getting clapped on the back. People were like, oh, how'd you do it? And I was looking at them being like, no, you don't get it. It's just getting worse. I feel like I'm pouring water into a bathtub that has a giant hole ripped in the bottom. You know, like people are clapping me on the back for helping create several thousand jobs. And I'm like, we're going to lose millions of jobs to this tidal wave of automation that's coming down the pike. And then Donald Trump became our president in 2016. How did you all react when that happened? Now, many of you here were sad or upset or got drunk. You did, at least. You know, there were tears, there was disbelief, but we all have friends and family members and neighbors who had the opposite reaction, who were excited. And to me, I looked up and said, wow, tens of millions of our fellow Americans decided that taking a bet on the narcissist reality TV star was the right way to go. And that's very dark, honestly. You really got to reflect on that for a second. You're like, wait a minute, like, what did we just do? And so this was a giant red flag. I said, we need to figure this out. We need to get into the guts of it. And in my opinion, Democrats have still not figured out what the lessons of Trump's victory were.
Amen.
No, there were many, many Americans who just took a bet on Donald Trump because they said our government is broken. You know, this is not working for us. Things are just getting darker and darker and slipping away. So I'm willing to take a bet on the Donald Trump presidency. And Democrats should have gone into soul-searching mode, being like, what the heck just happened and how did we allow this to happen? I went into soul-searching mode because here I was being celebrated for helping create thousands of jobs around the country, and I was like, okay, this is not working. I have to figure out why. And I'm a numbers guy, South Carolina. So I started going through the numbers as to why Donald Trump won. And if you turned on cable news today, why would you think Donald Trump's our president? Russia. So I got like Russia. Handicapping of Bernie Sanders was out there. Hillary Clinton, emails, Facebook,
job loss,
FBI, DNC. So there were a lot of things mixed together, and if you turn on cable news, that's still the set of explanations you get. But the numbers tell a clear and distinct story. To me, the reason why Donald Trump is our president today is this. We automated away 4 million manufacturing jobs. And where were those jobs? Michigan, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Wisconsin, Missouri, Iowa. If that list of states is familiar, those are all the swing states that Donald Trump needed to win and did win. And you've seen this in South Carolina. You all lost almost 100,000 manufacturing jobs. It's one reason why some of the communities have gone dark. In terms of like turn the lights off, and then as soon as the manufacturing plant closes, what closes next? The shopping center, what closes next? You know, just like ripples through a community. This is why Donald Trump won, is that we blasted away these 4 million manufacturing jobs, and we're not going to stop there. How many of you have noticed stores closing around where you live here in South Carolina?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, why are those stores closing?
Amazon.
Amazon, one word answer. Amazon soaking up $20 billion in business every single year, closing 30% of your stores and malls. How much did Amazon pay in federal taxes last year? Zero. That is your math, South Carolina. 20. I know they told you to cheer anytime I said math, so it's like, even though that's a dark math to cheer for, you're like cheering for that. It's like, yeah, zero taxes. I appreciate the support a great deal. So 20 billion out, zero back, 30% of your Main Street stores and malls closed. When you go into one of those ghost malls, I mean, that gets creepy, am I right? Yeah. You go into a dying mall, you're like, this is not where I need to be. Unfortunately, when that mall goes dark, it doesn't go to zero value, it goes to negative value. It causes blight, it depresses property values for miles around. And the most common job in South Carolina and in most of the country is retail clerk. Average retail clerk is a 39-year-old woman, making between $9 and $10 an hour. So when her store or mall closes, what is her next move? Tears, no idea, right? Like, no one knows. We know she certainly doesn't have a lot in the way of savings because almost half of us can't afford an unexpected $400 bill, and I'm sure that applies to the vast majority of the people who are making $9 to $10 an hour. Amazon paying zero in taxes while this is happening, and I want to explore this for a minute. If Amazon's paying zero in taxes, whose fault is that? Is that their fault? No. No. It's their job to try and pay zero taxes. You know, can you imagine the scene in Amazon HQ? The accountants and the CFO gather around a desk and they sit Jeff down and like, good news, Jeff. Another year of zero taxes. And then what does Jeff do? Jeff goes to his vault, says nice job, takes out giant bags of gold coins, drops them in front of each one of them. They take the bag, they throw them in their SUV, they drive home, and then they do like a Scrooge McDuck, like gold coin bag. You know? It's like, I mean, that is their job. Like, they're doing their job. Whose job is it to make sure they don't pay zero in taxes? Our job collectively. We have to be pretty dumb to have a system that lets Amazon pay zero in taxes. All right? And South Carolina, I have to say, you know who has to fix it? You do. Oh, I know, you're here, you're like, hey, on some Friday night I just came to see Yank Speak. I have to fix the fact that Amazon's paying 0 taxes? Yes, you have to fix it because there is no one else. That is the both magic and craziness to our system right now, is that we've got this government in Washington that has been overrun with corporate money, bought and sold time and time again. That's how a company like Amazon pays 0 in taxes. And our democracy allows for only one response, and that's to send someone to government and flush the pipes. Yeah, that's all. Now, for someone to get to the top of Washington, there have to be a number of things about this person, which is funny. Number one, they have to not owe anyone anything. You know what I mean? They can't be like, oh, someone financed my campaign. And you know who financed this campaign? You did. This campaign raised $10 million last quarter in increments of only $30 each. So my fans are almost as cheap as Bernie's. But that $10 million, that's 0 in corporate PAC money. We are the answer. This is the grassroots revolution that can get in there and start rewriting the rules of the 21st century economy to work for us.
Yes,
But the only way that happens is if you make it happen, South Carolina. Raise your hand if you're really into politics. Let's try this. This will be interesting. All right. So if you have your hands way up, what's the first state to vote? Iowa. What's the second one?
New Hampshire.
New Hampshire. What's third? Nevada. And then you all are number 4. Now, maybe some of you are like, number 4, that's not that great. Oh, it's very, very great. Because I can guarantee you this race will be completely up in the air by the time it gets to you all. Like, completely. I tried to do the math. Do you know how many Californians each of you is worth? About 250 Californians each. Seriously, so let's say there are several hundred people here tonight. That's like 75,000 Californians. It's like 2 football stadiums full of Californians here tonight. That's the power here. This is the power to rewrite the rules, right here. You get enough people here in South Carolina to present a new way forward to the rest of the country, it actually catches hold and catches fire. The answer is in your hands. We're in a magical place where your votes actually matter. In most of the country, they look up and they're like, my vote doesn't matter. They're generally right. Americans are very smart. No, I'm serious. I mean, let's tell you like it is. Your votes do matter. It does not take that many people here in South Carolina to change the course of history. If you look up at I can go through the math for you, but we're talking about like thousands. I'm talking about like a discrete number. It's like tens of thousands of folks here in South Carolina, and then history turns on a dime. Now, most of you I know are from South Carolina, and if that's the case, then everyone you know in the state is also magical. They're also worth 250 Californians. You can also be like, hey, I get 3 friends. That's 1,000 Californians. Like that. Seriously, you should set that as a goal. And if you're from outside the state, then you can come to the state and then talk to a magical South Carolinian. Like, this is the stuff of revolution, and it's the only way revolution occurs. It's the only way revolution occurs. Other than that, we have 4 more years of the trends getting sharper and stronger. So what are the trends? I talked about the fact that Amazon's closing 30% of your stores and malls and paying 0 in taxes. How many of you have noticed a self-serve kiosk in a fast food restaurant you've gone into? Every McDonald's in the country will have one by 2021. They're starting at the front of the house, and they're going to move to the back of the house, to like the robot burger flippers and fry cookers. Food preparation and food service, 3rd most common job in this country. When you call the customer service line of a big company and you get the software, you do the same thing I do, which is you dial 000, say human, representative, it's like until you get someone on the line. Raise your hand if that's what you do. Oh yeah, that software is miserable. But in 2 or 3 short years, the software is going to sound like this. Hey Andrew, how's it going? What can I do for you? It'll be fast, seamless, efficient, a little bit seductive perhaps. You might not even know it's software. What is that going to mean for the 2.5 million Americans who work at call centers right now making $14 an hour?
Homeless. Poverty.
Yeah, same thing as with a woman who lost her retail job. I talked to a call center manager this morning here in South Carolina, and he said to me that he's in the process of automating his own job away. That's why he was here. He was supporting me. He was like, "We need you to win so bad." The closer you are to the situation, the more clear it is. The top professions of people who support this campaign, and it's not in this precise order, but software engineer is in the top 5. Driver is in the top 5 because they all see the robot cars and trucks coming. Retail is in the top 5 because they see their stores closing. Teachers in the top 5 because they see what's happening in our schools every single day. How many of you all are teachers? Let's give them a round of applause. Good teachers are back. Good teachers are worth your weight in gold. And as a parent, when I drop my kids off, you know if they're in the classroom with a good teacher and you actually rest easy because they're going to actually get nurtured and taught. And there's a huge gulf there. You walk in and the teacher's checked out as a parent, you know it. And I'm happy to say that like good teachers, in my experience, outnumber bad teachers by like 1,000,000 to 1. So the self-serve kiosks are rolling out, the call center software is rolling out. The one that scares me is the robot trucks. How many of you all know a truck driver here in South Carolina?
I know one now.
Yeah, it's the most common job in 29 states in this country. There are 3 million plus truckers, 3.5 million or so truckers. 94% men, average age 49, make $46,000, a little bit more every year. How are they going to react when there's a robot truck that never needs to stop? I can go 24/7. You know, most of the truckers you know are non-union, and I know this because only 13% of truckers nationally are in a union, so your friends are probably the 87% that are not. And many of them took out loans of tens of thousands of dollars, even more, to lease their truck. So imagine having your life savings tied up in a truck that you can drive maximum 14 hours a day because then the truck seizes up and says you got to get out and go to sleep. And then you see the robot truck on the highway that never stops. What is your reaction? Yeah, I mean, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of people who are in this situation in 5 to 10 short years. UPS just invested in robot trucks in Arizona. Well, the company's not in Arizona, but they're actually like piloting the trucks in Arizona. They tend to choose warm states to test out the robot trucks because the robot trucks are really bad with snow. That's true. Yeah.
We are too.
Yeah, I hear that the South Carolina snow driving is not exactly like that. And like a few flakes come down, everyone's like, "Oh my gosh!" I don't know what that reaction's like. That's everywhere. When the robot trucks come, to me, this is when the rubber hits the road. We do not have that much time. I mean, technology tends to move in nonlinear ways. It goes like this, and then all of a sudden it goes up like that. And I'm friendly with some of the top technologists in the country, and the more they know, the more concerned they are. The conversations I have are not, I know what's in the lab, I know what artificial intelligence's cutting edge looks like, and everything's going to be cool. That's not the conversation. It goes, I know what's in the lab, I know what's coming out, and we need to prepare people. That is the message I get from folks who know the most. So this is the true set of challenges of the 21st century, South Carolina. I wish I had better news in many ways, but we're going to have to make our own good news. The only way we're going to make this work for you and your families is if we get to the top of our government and rewrite the rules so that it works for us.
Yes, sir.
We need you all to take this message to the rest of the country next year. Oh my gosh, it's only like 3 months from now. You all vote like Feb 29, I think. Is that a thing? Is it like leap year? You guys vote on leap year? Is that right? Did I make that up? Someone confirm this for me. Is that right? I'm just going to make sure I got that date right. Confirmed, all right. Yeah. So what does that give us to make history? Approximately 3 months. But we can do it. So you plant the flag and you say we're going to present a new way forward to the rest of the country of a trickle-up economy, an economy that works for our people, our families, and our communities. That makes us all stakeholders. Yeah, puts humanity first. Now, I know the first time you heard about me in the campaign, you heard this. There's an Asian man running for president who wants to give everyone $1,000 a month. And the first time you heard that, you were like, ha ha, that's a gimmick, that'll never happen. But this is not my idea, and it's not a new idea. Thomas Paine was for it at the founding of the country. He called it the citizen's dividend. Martin Luther King fought for this in the 1960s. He called it the guaranteed minimum income, and it is what he was fighting for when he was assassinated in 1968. And I have to say, I was so disappointed that I was just in Atlanta for the Democratic debate, and Dr. King did not even come up once. We have sanitized Dr. King's memory, where we celebrate his birthday, but we don't talk about the work he was doing when he was assassinated. This is not Andrew Yang's idea. It's not a new idea. This was Thomas Paine's idea. This is Martin Luther King's idea. This is Milton Friedman's idea. 1,000 economists endorsed it in the 60s. It passed the U.S. House of Representatives twice in 1971 under Nixon. And then 11 years later, one state passed a dividend where now everyone in that state gets between $1,000 and $2,000 a year, no questions asked. And what state is that? Oil! And how do they pay for it? Oil! And what is the oil of the 21st century? Data! Technology, AI, big data, self-driving cars and trucks. Our data is now worth more than oil. How many of you saw that?
Yes.
Facebook owes me money.
Yeah, really, they do. Facebook owes us all money. How many of you got your data check in the mail? Nobody. Where the heck did our data checks go? Facebook, Amazon, Google, the trillion-dollar tech companies that are not paying anything in taxes. That's where our data money is going. They call this the oil check in Alaska, and they love it. The entire country is going to call this the tech check, and we're all going to love it. So this is how we start rewriting the rules. We get our fair share of every Amazon sale, every Google search, every Facebook ad. We put the money into your hands. And you know the money doesn't disappear. After I'm president, thanks to you all, where are you going to spend the money in real life? How are you going to spend it?
Student loans.
I heard a bunch of things, student loans. I heard weed over there. Is weed on? And I do want to legalize marijuana. I think most of you know that. It's a healthier way of managing pain than the prescription opiates that are killing our people. How much of the money is going to stay right here in South Carolina?
Most of it.
Most all of it, not all of it. You might get an extra blender on Amazon. You might get your own Netflix password instead of passing the one around to like 10 people. So a little money floats up to the cloud, but most of it stays right here in your communities. It goes to daycare and Little League signups and car repairs you've been putting off, and the things that make us stronger and healthier every single day. That's where most of the money goes. And this is not something that people who are in business are against, because the people in business know that your having money actually is going to end up making their businesses stronger. That blasting away the American middle class is really bad for the economy.
I know that's right.
So this idea of a freedom dividend for every American goes from being far out and too good to be true to being necessary and inevitable very, very quickly. As soon as you see the full context of the fact that we're in the midst of the greatest economic transformation in the history of our country, what experts are calling the fourth industrial revolution. When is the last time you heard a politician even mention the words fourth industrial revolution? Never. Just now. And I'm barely a politician, South Carolina. And I certainly would have mentioned the fourth industrial revolution even more on Wednesday if they gave me a question or two that talked about the economy. Instead, I got questions that had absolutely nothing to do with my campaign. And I still...
Yes.
And I still got the highest boost in favorability of any candidate on that stage on Wednesday. And you know why I got that boost, South Carolina? You know why. It's because I seemed like a human being up there. You know? We talk about, like, this is like the war against the robots. There are times when I feel like my opponents are the robots.
Yang the goat!
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry I beat your guy. That was fun. So the fourth industrial revolution is in its third inning or so. When AI leaves the lab, it's going to get hairy. I talked to 70 CEOs in New York City and I asked them, how many of you are looking at replacing your back office clerical workers with AI? Guess how many hands went up out of 70? All 70 went up. The fact is you could fire anyone who didn't have their hand up, because that's the system we built. If they're not willing to replace hundreds of their workers with software, then they get fired. Because our system is designed to optimize the bottom line of these companies, corporate profits, GDP. Corporate profits are at record highs. You know what else are at record highs in the United States of America right now? Depression, mental illness, stress, anxiety, financial insecurity, suicides, drug overdoses, all at record highs in the United States. So what good are corporate profits if our people are dying before our eyes? To me, if you have this situation, how many of you have ever run a club or business or organization? Imagine if you have the wrong measurements. Like, how's it going to do over time?
Terrible.
Pretty terribly, right? That's where we are right now as a country. How are we measuring our progress? GDP. And even the inventor of GDP said 100 years ago, this is a terrible measurement for national well-being. We should never use it as that. And here we are 100 years later being like, GDP, GDP. You know, if he woke up now, he'd be horrified. He'd be like, what the heck are you doing? Same with Simon Kuznets. You can look it up. He's a smart dude. Number two, stock market prices. The bottom 80% of Americans own 8% of stock market wealth. The bottom 50% own essentially zero. So why are we monitoring an indicator that essentially maps to the top 20% of your people? Like, who cares? Like, they're going to be okay. That's not the set of measurements you would focus on. And then the third one is headline unemployment rate. Now, headline unemployment, according to the numbers, is very, very low. But you remember when Donald Trump was running for president in 2016, what did he say about the headline unemployment rate?
It's BS.
He said it was bogus, it was fake news, there were tens of millions of Americans who were out of the workforce. And then he became president and all of a sudden it became real news. Notice that? He's like, oh, now it's real. He was right the first time. The headline unemployment rate does not count people who've dropped out of the workforce, which right now our labor force participation rate's at a multi-decade low because people keep dropping out of the workforce, particularly men. It doesn't take into account the fact that 94% of the new jobs that are getting created are temporary gig or contract jobs that have no benefits and could disappear at any moment. Doesn't take into account that there's a 40 to 44% chance if you're a college graduate and doing a job that job doesn't require a college degree. And does your school come back and forgive your debt if that's the case? Of course not. So we saddle you with tens of thousands of debt, and then you have a 40 to 40% chance of doing a job that did not require the degree in the first place. No, but headline unemployment, like, it's a job. Doesn't keep track of the fact if you have to do multiple jobs in order to make ends meet, which is more and more normal. So the headline unemployment rate is this terrible indicator. Those are the big three, South Carolina, if you think about it. GDP, stock market prices, and headline unemployment, and they're all garbage. And when I get to the White House, I'm going to update these measurements to actually tell us how we are doing. So how would you measure your own community's progress in a way that would actually get you excited if I said it got better?
Arts and society. Arts and
Arts?
culture.
You know, I'll take it. Arts and culture. You know, but you all know that artists have the same impact on a community as entrepreneurs. I don't know how many of you knew that. Like, if you have a bunch of artists. Also, arts education corresponds to success in life more than just about any other topic area. That's true. So when people ask me how we're going to improve our education system, there's a long list, but very high on that list is invest in social and emotional learning, arts education, financial literacy, technology management, like things that would actually be relevant to our kids instead of trying to prepare them for an economy that no longer exists. So if we wanted to measure our progress in the 21st century, you could say arts and culture. I heard health and life expectancy. That's very straightforward, right?
Yes, sir.
You know, the fact that our life expectancy has declined for 3 years in a row is not normal, South Carolina. When's the last time that happened?
The Spanish flu!
The Spanish flu of 1918 is the last time our life expectancy declined for 3 years in a row. A global pandemic that killed millions. You have to go back 100 years to find another period like the period we're in right now. Of course, how many, like, that's not on headlines. You know, it's like, yeah, things are great. It's not normal for your life expectancy to decline even once in a developed country. That's actually highly unusual. Ordinarily, it just keeps on creeping upwards, right? Because you're getting richer, things are getting better. Going down once, highly unusual. Going down twice in a row, shocking. Going down 3 times, almost unprecedented. That is where we are right now. So we need to measure our progress by our own health and life expectancy. How about our mental health and freedom from substance abuse? How about clean air and clean water? How about how our kids are doing? So this is how we will measure progress under my administration, and I will update us all every year at the State of the Union. I'm going to use a PowerPoint deck in my State of the Union, and we're going to be able to track it all. Some people here are definitely like, is there a PowerPoint chain going on? Oh, no. I know, it's the nerdiest presidential campaign ever. If we have the measurements right, then we can start valuing our own work properly. And right now, my wife is at home with our 2 boys, one of whom is autistic. How much does her work count in GDP every year? 0. And we know that's the opposite of the truth. We know it's among the most important work that gets done anywhere in our society. And so if you start measuring our economy by our own health and well-being, then whose work starts to gain value?
Women!
Caregivers, parents, teachers, anyone, social workers, anyone who's making us stronger, psychologists, like people that make us stronger, then instead of being seen as a cost, they start to be seen as investments. A good teacher is worth his or her weight in gold by the numbers, because if you look at the educational outcomes in that school, multiplied by the number of students, it actually justifies paying teachers a lot more. By changing the measurements, we can change everything. And a lot of it is about changing our own mindset. Because right now, this mindset of scarcity is tearing our country apart. And we all know it very, very well. We all live it. And scarcity is not just about money, though that's a big part of it. In a country that has 78% of us living paycheck to paycheck, and almost half of us can't afford an unexpected $400 bill, and you have record levels of financial insecurity, then yeah, a lot of it's money. You look up and you're like, oh my gosh, like I have to make these time-money trade-offs every day just to try and make ends meet. Now that's a mindset of scarcity that has disastrous effects. But it's not just money. It's time. It's companionship. There are different types of scarcity that are weighing us down. And this is what we have to defeat the most. The mindset of scarcity is actually what makes us think that something like us all getting $1,000 a month is not possible. There is nothing stopping the majority of citizens in a democracy from voting ourselves a dividend of $1,000 a month. Yes, absolutely nothing. Do you all remember voting for the $4 trillion bailout of Wall Street? No, none of us voted for that. You know, do you remember anyone being like, where are we going to get the money? No. Like, you know, it's time for us to take it back and then create, essentially, a bailout for the people. Invest in ourselves, invest in our people. I was so struck by what was going on in the financial crisis. I quit my job. I started a nonprofit. I devoted 7 years of my life trying to make things better. Because I saw what happened and I was sickened by it. I was like, what just happened? We just destroyed this economy, bailed out the bankers, and then everyone's walking around like, you know, like with people losing their homes in communities around the country, like this is appropriate. I was like, this is disgusting. You know, like we have to do better than this. And so I quit my job. I put some of my own savings to start this nonprofit. I started calling rich friends and being like, hey, like throw in a couple bucks. because I thought that this was the way to rebuild the country. And I'm incredibly proud of the work that I did over those 7 years. And the organization's growing without me. It turns out they didn't need me that much. Which is a sign of very proud entrepreneur. You're like really excited when it just goes on without you. But I realized that we have to go far, far bigger. That the language of capital efficiency is going to tear us apart and destroy us if we let it go too far. And it's getting there right now. Right now, so many of us are getting confused between economic value and human value. Yeah. Like they're the same thing. They are not. That's why you have people who are generally well-intended saying ridiculous things like the coal miners should become coders.
Oh my God.
That actually makes no sense. You know, it only makes sense if you're so brainwashed to think if you don't have economic value, you have no value. So if your livelihood has disappeared, then we have to try and turn you into something that has value, as if we're all widgets, as if we're all like economic inputs into this like giant machine. That's really where this country is right now. Like the software is trying to turn us into these economic inputs and it's not working. And then there's this race against the machine happening in the background where the AI is getting smarter and stronger, the robot trucks are getting better every single day, and then we have to evolve. This is the evolution. We have to take this mindset of scarcity and transform it into a mindset of abundance and possibility and optimism and humanity. It's the only answer. It's the only way out of this mess that we have inherited over the last number of years. It's a beautiful Friday night here in South Carolina. We're looking around. Like I can see, like you're backlit, so most of you are kind of silhouettes, to be honestly, except for the people in the front. But there's something really magical about tonight, about this gathering, about this campaign. There are people who told me that they fell in love through this campaign, and it made me so happy and proud. I love you guys too. Now, when I was digging into these problems, I consider myself a pretty practical guy. And so I was like, okay, like let's figure this out. There's like a numbers problem, so there's a numbers solution, and we'll like go into it. But you wind up translating it into bigger values pretty quickly, because you realize that if we quantify ourselves, we're going to lose on a catastrophic scale. You know, like there is no way to win this particular race. The only way to win is if we actually change the race itself. Instead of a race for who can perform the most productivity and work in a particular time frame, it has to be who can make us healthier, stronger, mentally healthier, more artistic, more optimistic, more sound, more whole. And you know this is true because all of the opposite is happening to us. You can see it around us in our young people in particular, like where we have record high levels of anxiety and stress, and you can see people are starting to feel it on really fundamental human levels. As a parent myself, like I see this too, and I want to be proud of the country that we leave for our kids. I can see the future very clearly, South Carolina, and the future that is coming down the road is not something I am willing to accept for my kids or yours. But I cannot change our future alone. I need you to work. I need you with me. We have incredible team members here in South Carolina, and they need your help. What they need you to do is to volunteer, to reach out to people here in South Carolina. There are folks who are walking around the perimeter of clipboards. You might have signed up when you got here, but you need to find someone, make sure they have your information, and when they reach out to you and say, hey, do you want to join us for phone banking? Do you want to canvas? Do you want to text bank? We need you to step up and help us build this wave, because this wave will live or die with you all. If we do not make this happen in 2020, what happens? We get 4 more years of an out-of-touch government that does not care, of the dysfunction continuing, of our communities continuing to disintegrate and corrode before our eyes. I will not let that happen, and we will not let that happen.
That's right.
But we need your help. We need you to find someone and sign up. You all are magic. All of your friends and family members and neighbors are magic. There are many ways to reach out to people. In person works best, particularly here in South Carolina. There are the fun digital ways too. How many of you have had the experience where you send a video of like a Joe Rogan podcast or a YouTube interview or a media clip to like friends? Raise your hand if you've done that. Thank you for doing that. That works too. That does work. And I will walk through what happens. When you send that out, for a little while you hear nothing. But then some days or weeks later, what happens?
Watch it.
They watch it, they come back around, or they saw something else, and then they're like, oh, I saw your guy on this or that, and then I checked out the thing. How many of you had that experience? Yeah, so we need you to keep doing that, but we need you to reach out and touch people here in South Carolina in the old school ways, because most people here in South Carolina are just now waking up to the campaign. They're not on the internet as much as some of the people here in this crowd tonight. They need someone to actually knock on their door or call them on the phone or have a yard sign or show up and then get their head up so they can take some time from their busy lives and think about who they're going to support. Are you up for that, South Carolina? We definitely need your help. Donald Trump is our president today because he got at least some of the problems right. He said he was going to make America great again, and what did Hillary Clinton say in response? America's already great. Remember that? That did not work. We need to acknowledge the depth and severity and reality of the problems, but we need real solutions. What were Donald Trump's solutions? He said he's going to build a wall. He's going to turn the clock back. He's going to bring the old jobs back. We have to do the opposite of these things, South Carolina. We have to turn the clock forward.
Yes.
We have to accelerate our economy and society as quickly as possible. We need to evolve in how we think about work and value, and I am the ideal candidate for that job because the opposite of Donald Trump is an Asian man who likes math. What does math stand for, South Carolina?
Make America think harder.
Make America think harder. That's right. That is your mission. That is the mission of this campaign. We have to wake up America to the real problems, let them know it is not immigrants that are causing us to lose our jobs. It's technology and an evolving economy that is pushing more and more of us to the side. We make Americans think harder. We solve the real problems. We start moving the country not left, not right, but forward. And that is what you are going to do. You're going to lead us forward in the days to come. Thank you, South Carolina. Let's make history together.
You're starting to trickle back in, but I don't want to fall down the rabbit hole. Cross my heart, I won't do it again.
Put the money in our hands. 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 Can we afford it? Yes. Will it cause inflation? No. Is it awesome? Yes. Is anyone trying to make it happen? Yeah, that guy.